Namaste and welcome. Thank you for your interest. I hope this finds you with a clear and peaceful mind. I'm posting this short video to share a bit more about the so-called kabbalistic charts I've been making for over a decade now. Not knowing of anyone else who is doing something like this and hence not sure about what to call them, I initially chose the description charts for them simply because of the astrological charts that I was familiar with. So having, through my activities on Instagram lately, made quite a few charts for people now, I've come to the realization that the word chart might be a bit of a misrepresentation. So I found that for some, namely the word chart implies something graphic, not wanting to either disappoint or create a wrong impression. I'm recording this short video in order to explain a bit more about what it is exactly that I do when I compile your chart. So in order to preclude further confusion about what you can expect from my work, I will from now on be using the words kabbalistic reading, and I hope that's more accurate. Now, when you decide to have your reading done by me, the first thing I do is transpose your details, being your full name and your date of birth, into Hebrew. Now, this can only be really the first step, since Kabbalah is linguistic mysticism. This means that it is all about the powers of the Hebrew letters and the numerical values that Kabbalistically underpin these letters energetically. Now, in order to understand this, it is essential to know that to Kabbalists, the world was created by means of speech. This we learn, for example, from Genesis 1, where God says, "Let there be light," and there was light. Now, this speech, importantly, was Hebrew. So as such, to Kabbalists, everything in creation is based on the letters of the Hebrew alphabet. So Kabbalistically, without going into much detail, because of course this is a massive subject, the order of creation is first light, Reshima, then the numbers, then the letters, then the words, and only then the things, only then phenomenology. So take the Hebrew word out of the thing, Kabbalistically, the thing will cease to exist. Now, for this reason, the Hebrew letters that represent your name, your own name and your date of birth, are considered to be highly personal expressions of numerical light, if you will. And looking into them discloses more about your individual numerical constellation. Now, the second step in working on your Kabbalistic reading entails so-called gematria. Now, gematria is the practice of converting words and sentences into numbers, after which they can be compared with other words of the same numerical value, and similarities can be drawn. Of course, this is all in Hebrew. This ancient practice is where our contemporary numerology stems from. Now, accordingly, looking at the numbers of your name and your date of birth, I compare them to the numbers and ratios that are widespread in Kabbalistic texts and take my direction from what comes up from that. Now, widening my research, I will then incorporate the concepts that I have found your numbers to denote and follow the pathways that they have opened before me. So this entails study of old Kabbalistic texts, of course in Hebrew, since in translation the vast majority of the Kabbalistic implications and power are lost. So I now will also look at your details from a biblical point of view. So if specific words that came up in your details feature in the Torah, I will study some of the verses in question, and when deeper connections with your own details occur, I will include them in your reading. Now, the third step of doing Kabbalistic name reading entails the personalization and harmonization of the information and insights that the Kabbalistic texts so far have offered me. Now, I usually use terminology as found in the Zohar, the Book of Splendor, to do so, employing the ideas pertaining to the so-called Tree of Life, which is the conglomeration of the 10 Sefirot, the divine emanations. And although the Zohar is far from the oldest book of Kabbalah, and it's not even the most original book of Kabbalah, the terminology used there seems to be best known outside of the Kabbalistic circles, and for this reason I've chosen to use that specific terminology. If so desired, though, I can also use more Hindu or Buddhist terminology to express the same findings, because I have a long history in those traditions as well. Now, as such, I show to which divine powers, or sephirot, as said, you are most strongly related, and which ones of those are more in a state of potentiality than activity. This I gather from your details. I will explain what the psychological and spiritual implications of these findings are, and what they could mean in a more practical sense. Now, to understand the finer details of the insights offered, I often use permutation systems that I find I'm being pointed at while I'm working with your details. Now, permutation systems are a big subject in themselves. So for more information on these systems, I would like to refer you to some videos I've posted on this topic on my website. This third step of the reading is the most practical. It puts things in a more tangible perspective for the recipient, for you. Now, in general, when dealing with Kabbalah, it is important to realize that it's a stream of mysticism that is inherently dynamic. This means that to Kabbalists, the source texts actually communicate with them. So the belief that the Hebrew letters have creational powers, remember that it was by means of the letters that creation is manifested, according to Kabbalah. So the belief that the Hebrew letters have creational powers imply that they, to the mystic who has been graced with the power to receive their souls on high, as it's called in kabbalistic texts, constitute a direct connection with the divine. So as such, to the Kabbalists, dealing with the source text equals dealing with the bundle of life, the source of life itself. It's a direct connection. There's nothing in between there. So this dynamic part of doing someone's reading is a process that cannot be rushed for these same dynamic reasons. The first few days that I work on a reading, I spend mostly on gathering just information, looking at the numbers, see what comes up, see where they point me, and getting a feeling for the disposition that is taking shape in front of me. That is your disposition, of course. Now, more often than not, once this stage has come to completion, I have to leave things for a day or two just to let them sink in deeper. If I rush it, I will miss things. So I will still think of your details. I will contemplate the concepts that have come up, just to see where these concepts go and how they relate to you. But I need to give them the time and space to grow inside me, to see clearer what all the implications are. Now, when I feel that the abstract facts have gained enough personality, I return to the details and the stage of harmonizing commences. Now, this will also typically occupy me a few days until I come to the point where everything starts aligning. Now, only now, with the full implication of the details unveiled, do I start writing everything out. Now, the literal compilation, the writing of the reading, more often than not leads to new subjects because the words start moving and interacting with each other. And I will include those things as well. I will edit, of course, what I have written carefully, and I will read through it a few times to see if there's enough transparency in what I've written. Now, doing somebody's Kabbalistic reading in this way normally takes anywhere from 15 to 20 hours. This is 15 to 20 hours of studying, writing, and editing, excluding the time that I spend meditating on the details and on the specific concepts or subjects that have come up. This is the case, of course, in the full version of the reading, when I do a full version of the reading. Now, apart from this full version, I can also offer a much more concise version. So I can make it as short and as long as you really wish. Now, in the case of a concise version, I will go through all of the above steps or all of the steps I've just mentioned more quickly, as in a more general way, and I try to limit myself so as not to go into all the pathways that are open. I try to choose the most important ones, just to make the reading a bit clearer and a bit more concise. I will not be using permutation systems and things like that. I probably also won't be looking into biblical implications. That's the case if you are interested in a very short reading, just me presenting you with the numbers of your name and your date of birth, and what specific concepts, specifically Sefirot, come up from just looking at those details. Now, you can expect to receive your Kabbalistic reading in a PDF file. I'll send it to you in a PDF file, anywhere from, depending on how long you want me to work on this. So like from 3 pages would be the minimum really, up to 20 pages or more. And again, that will then be either within a few days or in 2 to 3 weeks, again, depending on how much time you want me to spend on your details. And also depending on whether you want me to include more general Kabbalistic information or not. Now, as part of the reading that I do, I also offer a 1-hour interaction, be it through Skype or Zoom, so that we can, in a more direct way, delve deeper in your details. And sometimes after doing a session like that, personal online classes about the topics that came up will be the result. And sometimes people choose to follow more comprehensive classes about Kabbalah, because I do also teach classes in general. So I'm always, of course, open and enthusiastic about giving classes, and that can be a side branch of this. But also, if this sounds appealing to you after listening to this video and you want classes, I'm open for group classes or individual classes. Usually I prefer not too many people, because I want to be able to feel you while I'm teaching and to see what's going on for you. Now, in conclusion, let me surmise that for me, while I'm doing a reading, my aim is to bring across 3 main points. First of all, I attempt to introduce the recipient to some fundamental Kabbalistic concepts. Without that, also, the terminology of the reading will be too complicated to follow, usually. Now, apart from explaining these concepts in an abstract sense, I also always try to explain them in such a way that they themselves can be of practical use. Secondly, I try to show how the individual numbers and letters form an individual entirety that I call your numerical constellation. The reading then involves the juxtaposition and comparison of this constellation and the wider Kabbalistic framework. Now, last but not least, I try to give the recipient a taste of the thoroughly living nature of this stream of mysticism. Being the most amazing aspect of Kabbalah, I do my best to point out and emphasize all the wonderful numerical so-called coincidences that occur in the process of doing a reading. So as part of this, I show how the biblical verses that come up interrelate, how permutations confirm themselves, and how numerical reality in general reveals patterns and invites the mystic to enter them. Now, because these patterns are existential, a Kabbalistic reading is not limited to Kabbalistic terminology. For this reason, of course, I can, as noted, also present my findings in more Hindu or Buddhist terminology. In the end, what it's all about, for me, is that the reading will enhance one's understanding of life and the personal patterns that we are born into. That's what I wish to offer. So I hope that this short video is informative and gives you a better idea of what I'm offering as part of a Kabbalistic reading. Of course, I'm always open to explain things in more detail, if so desired. Feel free to contact me via Instagram or email to this effect if you wish to do so. And that's all I wanted to say. Thank you very much. Om Shanti, 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 Shanti.